The negotiations between the UK and the EU continue influencing market participants. Notably, there is no new information on this issue. That's why traders focused on the UK's final GDP data for the third quarter. The final data turned out to be well above the most optimistic predictions. Several hours earlier, all analysts were sure that the indicator's drop would slow down to minus 9.6% from minus 21.5%. However, the report showed even a smaller decline of 8.6%. This is a really positive factor. Moreover, data for the second quarter was upwardly revised to a slump of 20.8%. Of course, the UK economy is still in depreciation. However, the situation has somehow improved. If there is no fresh news on Brexit talks by the end of this day, traders will have to take into account the US final GDP data. At the moment, economists suppose that the final figures will match the preliminary estimates. Thus, in the third quarter, the US economy contracted by 2.9% on a yearly basis, compared to a drop of 9% in the previous period. If the predictions come true, market participants will hardly show any reaction, as they have already priced in these figures. However, if the final data significantly differs from the forecasts, the reaction could be quite strong. Investors are likely to adjust their positions depending on the data. Nevertheless, there are no reasons to think that the report will fail to meet the preliminary data. However, the US may see the British scenario. On the trading chart, we can see that after sharp fluctuations, the euro-dollar pair returned to the high of the midterm uptrend. It's obvious that the euro is significantly overbought. However, high speculative activity prevents sellers from the full-scale correction. It's quite possible that the pair will hover between the levels of 1.2180 and 2275. The best trading strategy is based on a break of either limit. At the same time, the pound-dollar pair tumbled to a 1.3190 and then returned to the previous levels. All this occurred amid high speculative activity caused by the news flow. Speculators are likely to go on monitoring fresh information, which will determine the price changes. That's all for now. We keep monitoring the financial market situation. Subscribe to our channel and see you in several hours. We will take a close look at the US trading session.